This video is an ultimate guide on how to find, how to hire, how to manage, and how to build a relationship with the virtual assistants from Philippines. My guest is half Filipino Edward from Sweden, and he runs an agency, Phoenix VA, which helps e-commerce business owners to run their business using virtual assistants from Philippines. In this video, you will learn a lot of actionable steps, and you will get a lot of practical information, what websites you can use, how you can reward your VAs, what bonuses to give, how to set up processes within the company to have the best effect and to be most productive when working with VAs from Philippines. So enjoy this conversation, and if you would like Edward to help you with VAs from Philippines, check his website below in the description, as well as a discount code if you decide to use his service. And always, if you like videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click like button below this video. Hello, Edward. It's nice to have you here. Could you introduce yourself and tell us how you help Amazon sellers?
Thank you very much for having me, Augustus. My name is Edward Basse. I'm the CEO of Phoenix VA. I started my own offshore virtual assistance company just within the last few months. I'm an ex-Amazonian. I actually worked for the Kindle division almost a lifetime ago before I was married. And I've been working in e-commerce for about 12 years now. 4 years ago, I was hired by a consumer electronics company to manage their Amazon presence. And within 12 months, I had taken it from absolutely no revenue to a 6-figure FBA business. But one of the things that really kind of got to me about the whole experience was, wow, there's a lot of work here. Like, this is a very difficult to automate platform. There's a lot of mistakes that can easily be made that seem very administrative and benign, but that have compound effects over time that can threaten a business. I started my own Amazon consultancy firm here in Stockholm, Sweden, to help companies try and actually get a grip on the operational demands of Amazon. In the last few months, though, I pivoted to a B2B model because I saw that there was a great market need for sellers who had a lot of brands, big CPG firms with more SKUs than they can count, and an increasing number of FBA aggregators who were looking for turnkey team solutions to handle their operational demands. I'm also half Filipino, and I lived in the Philippines way long ago in my early 20s, again, before I was married. And I saw the value in connecting good value, high talent in the Philippines with Amazon sellers right away.
All right, so it's actually a surprise that you are half Filipino. That makes sense that you're talking about Philippine VAs. And I know that you prepared some slides, so maybe let's jump directly into them and let's see what we can learn from you.
Absolutely. So I know that you and I have been talking quite a bit about it. This is something that's near and dear to my heart, as I just said. And I wanted to make sure that sellers had 6 clear things to think about when they decide to build their own teams or to find their own VAs to help scale their business. So the very first thing that I often get is, why the Philippines? Right away, it's because there's a high level of education. The Philippines educational system has very high standards. And while it's not free, it has a lot of public accessibility. So you actually have a labor pool that already has a fair degree of college level education, for instance. I also really think that one of the main selling points is that it's got high level of English language training. This is a legacy, of course, of the American Commonwealth era, in which the American colonial government decided that it was important to center the Philippine educational system around English language acquisition. The third is, surprise, there's an Amazon support center in Cebu. Amazon actually has a reputation for contracting to a lot of third-party service providers in the Philippines. So you actually have a high level of talent already there who's familiar with at least the back end of things like seller support. The fourth is there's a BPO culture, business process outsourcing. Oftentimes this is call centers, but you also have offshore legal work, HR, a lot of people are already used to a high level of administrative work that is offshored, and there's a culture of professionalism that's built around that. And the fifth is it's scalable. There's a lot of talent out there. It's very easy to find one. Not that it's easy to vet one, but there's definitely a depth in the talent pool so that people who are interested in scaling their own businesses have the ability to keep finding and acquiring new talent to help with their FBA or vendor business. Where can I find them is often the next question. Well, first of all, personal recommendations, right? You definitely have friends, people in your network, some of whom probably already use VA services. It's a good idea to actually just call them up or send them an SMS and say, hey, is there anything here that is for me? The second, of course, is that you can use things like online freelancer platforms. Upwork and Fiverr are very popular. There's a lot that's written out there about the pros and cons of these things. I should say, full disclosure, that a lot of the time, Upwork and Fiverr can probably cause more problems than it solves. And that's because it has a lot of people who are vying for ranking in their own search results on these platforms. It's difficult to properly vet and understand the actual technical backgrounds of some of these freelancers. You can also use specialized VA networks. There's a great one called Pareto. You have VAA, and then you have Phoenix VA like us. And you can also use general labor brokers, onlinejobs.ph, right? General labor contracting and brokerage services that try to connect digitally interested parties with general Philippine VA help. There are pros and cons for quite a number of these. In my opinion, it depends honestly on where you're at in the development of your business. If you feel that the online freelancer platforms, which can be operationally demanding, right? You're actually having to juggle in the same platform between different VAs. If that is something that you feel you can handle and scale, then that is something you should definitely consider. Specialized VA networks offer serious and robust training. And they offer a lot of the benefits of an agency model without a lot of the hassle. General labor brokers, of course, that's some options as well. Onlinejobs.ph has a great body of people who you can access, lots of talent there. But again, you have to go through the process of vetting, meeting, and negotiating the commercial terms with the VA that you've decided to work with. One thing I really want to kind of work here is the expectations that people should manage when they think about their VAs. All too often, I come across, even in my own personal network, my seller friends who kind of want to find the VA unicorn, the person who is absolutely top-notch skilled in practically every aspect of managing an Amazon business, PPC, listings, graphic design, translation, so forth and so forth and so forth. I call them unicorns because I don't really think that they exist. I think that what you're looking for at the end of the day is, are you going to manage a single person, a single VA, or like if you choose an Upwork solution in which you might have to hire multiple people, are you going to be working a network here? A single VA has a lot of pros and cons, right? The pros is you can have one person that you manage, that you actually develop a relationship with. You can actually see wisdom develop. They're able to solve problems in a much more efficient way because they're understanding the principles driving those problems. But at the same time, they don't necessarily have the depth of all of the skills that you might need to actually see success and growth on your own business. A VA network similarly has pros and cons, right? Pros, you get to tap into a body of people who are looking at the problem from different angles, right? You want 3, 4, 5 brilliant people looking at different angles in your problems for the cost of one. On the other hand, though, finding a VA network that actually has the solutions for you still takes a lot of commercial time. You have to actually talk to the VA network. You have to make sure that they're able to connect you with the right account manager, for instance, that understands your brand and commercial needs. The next step is training. We all know that training requires, at the end of the day, identifying areas of past experience and growth, both technical and interpersonal. If you're connected to a VA, either from the network, a single VA that you found in Upwork or Fiverr, you have to walk in assuming that this person, first of all, doesn't know every single thing about Amazon. No one really does. And they don't really know every single thing about your business and how it should operate. they also are going to have a penumbra, the bridge between how your business operates and how its goals exist with how Amazon's operations, terms of service, and realities exist as well. So I like to break it out when we're connecting VAs, or when I'm actually training VAs on myself, I'm focusing primarily on either technical or interpersonal skills. These are broken into fairly typical areas. I've had enough experience now that I can tell you these are the things that we look for, and maybe you should be looking for them as well. First of all, it's about communication style. I am definitely a person who believes a little bit more in over communication than under communication. I think it's important to be able to stay on top of your business and to ensure that you know what's going on and what this person's actually doing. A big thing for me, and this is something I'm very aggressive about with our own VAs, is emails. As we're going to see in just a little bit, I'm not the biggest fan of chat and chat-based communication. I like emails, and I make it a point that when I take on a VA, I identify exactly how they write emails. Writing a good email is an art, but it's something that's very important in communicating with the brand, with the client, and communicating even with seller tickets. Being able to effectively communicate in a written way is quite powerful. The other thing that we look for is general problem solving. We're going to go into a little bit later with this. I tend to believe, of course, that every business should have clear and defined goals. But I think with managing a VA, the most efficient way of establishing a relationship is to take what's called a mission directive style of leadership. We basically outline the framework. We must solve this problem, and you have the explicit authority in these following ways to solve these problems. And you can do so using these tools that we have, or if you can show that initiative, other tools that you think might be more efficient. The final point, of course, is reliability. You want to make sure that this person, as you train them, as they get acquainted with your business operations and with Amazon and connecting those two things, that you're creating a work culture that emphasizes their reliability. You can count on them. You can foster loyalty for them to solve these problems and to communicate efficiently. There's a lot of ways that you can foster this, but I find that there's really two areas here. One is, I'm an ex-Amazonian, so I remembered having to produce narratives. I think it's really important to establish in your communication structure and to let it make it very clear with your VA that they have the authority and in fact are encouraged to explain their reasoning above all else. Why didn't you do this? Why did you fail to do this? Break it down to me and explain in a story, not bullet points, exactly what happened and what was the narrative here, to fully grasp exactly where these people have failed and how you can actually establish better routines, which I'll go over, to enhance that reliability. And the second, and this is definitely something I encourage, is it's also a bit of a balance between quick wins and long-term strategic victories. We all know that Amazon can be extremely frustrating and obstinate in solving problems. And we got to understand that when we're throwing a lot of these to our VAs, that not having those quick wins and only having long-term strategic victories can be very wearisome. It happens to everyone. We find that in our training sessions and in the way that we establish workflows, it's important to strike a balance between quick wins, solve it right then and there, but also problems that can only be solved through long-term strategic thinking. Now, you definitely need to identify in your business technical and general areas of growth. These could be things like technical skills, right? Is this person fairly weak at PPC? Is this person lacking in interpersonal skills? Are they having trouble staying organized? These are areas that you, specific to your business, need to identify with your VA at the assessment level, but also as you guys start to get ramping up. I can give you some areas. We believe very strongly in online tools. There's so many that are available to you, and you can actually see through Orange Klik itself the availability of these online courses. Helium 10 offers some really great stuff. YouTube offers some really great materials as well. Every single software program that you probably use for your business includes some kind of educational resource. Use that. Very often we found that when we're onboarding new people, that simply throwing them into the FAQ section or support section of our software tools does the trick. Some of these also use tests that are able to ascertain the level of development of your VA. Definitely make them take those tests and look at those results. And of course, human training. This is very important for us as well. If you have an expert in your team who is a PPC person, you can create your own educational platform with the rest of the team. These could be things like weekly stand-ups, monthly lecture sessions over lunch. One of the most impactful investments that we made was we hired a firm that specializes in helping call centers teach their employees. Why did we do this? Because it was important for our employees to understand basic, practical, strategic communication skills. How do you pick up the phone and greet that person? How do you call your client and actually talk to them? How do you write effective emails? These are very, very important things. And we find that human training actually supplements a lot of the technical development that your VA might get. Now we can talk about the next point, which is tools. So with tools, you guys have all sorts of things that you can jump in. It depends on your business once again. We tend to make the belief based on working with so many clients and having experience working across different product categories that if your FBA operations still require an inordinate amount of work on the Amazon Seller Central console, you're definitely going to reach a ceiling in terms of what your virtual assistant can productively accomplish. The direction of, I think, most sellers, agencies, aggregators is to, of course, center as much work as possible into core software tools, core software suites. The moment you can plug your VA into a training module with those software tools, you're going to see an exponential increase in productivity, as opposed to simple incremental increases in productivity. What you're looking for is smooth human-computer interaction. That's basic computer literacy, okay? Can you write an email? Are you able to sign into the Seller Central account? Are you able to navigate the tool that we selected for you in an easy and seamless way? Is it intuitive for you to use that? Basic computer literacy, believe it or not, I even meet some CEOs who seem to lack that. It's something that shouldn't be discounted quite heavily. I'm also a big believer in the idea that general experience rather than specific experience is really important here. We're looking for someone, as you should, who knows the underlying core principles of spreadsheets, not just really good at QuickBooks. This is also part of the smooth human-computer interaction. It's important that a VA grasps intuitively the underlying principles of problems rather than only focus on clear-cut and often inflexible solutions. We strongly suggest that you focus on the following tools, and I'm going to give you guys some real stuff to think about here. The first is remote desktop versus VPN. I've seen a lot of discussion about which one is which and which one is actually better. In our experience, VPN has a lot of really great advantages, particularly cost. It's easier to get licensed for that. You don't necessarily need to have the same hardware demands as a remote desktop would be. But in our opinion, VPNs also have real weaknesses. The number one weakness is that it doesn't always work. We've had way too many experiences where we've had extensive VPN networks fully turned on for all of our VAs, and Amazon still catches that they're in an offshore location, which can create a series of cascades in seller support tickets, if you guys know what I mean, that need to be resolved. We like the remote desktop solution. What we typically do, full disclosure, is we have a hardware setup that's run 24/7 that allows our VAs to access the remote desktop remotely and to securely sign in to different seller accounts, use different tools, download different reports. We found that even though this is a little bit more expensive and requires a little bit more brain power to set up, in the long term, it's actually cleaner, more secure and robust, and more scalable in some ways than the VPN solution. The second is task management and team collaboration. We like to use Asana or Trello, but there's a lot of different tools out there that you guys can use that matches your business needs and existing operations. I personally believe, though, it's important that you have a team collaboration or task management tool that has two functions to it. The first is it's got to be a tool that allows you to create dependencies between tasks. Your team needs to understand already that if we have task A, it's actually sensitively dependent on whether or not these other tasks have been completed before. Not all collaboration and management tools have this, but it's, as we all know, Amazon can be interrelated, interconnected, and problems can cascade. So it's important to understand how problems are related to root problems and how solutions that you propose are dependent on whether other tasks or root problems have been fully resolved. The second thing you got to think about with the task management tool is one that allows you to automatically create subsequent follow-up tasks. Now, we all have a situation, for instance, where we need to take control of a listing. You need to, just so you can get that flat file to come in. But guess what? You need to file a seller support ticket just to be able to make sure that that listing is associated with your account. The problem is if your VA just sees, put that support ticket on your task management tool and clicks complete, the actual problem isn't resolved, right? There could be a series of other seller support tickets that you might have to keep chasing to actually finish that task. So we find that having a system where you can create a task in your team collaboration tool that automatically pops up a series of dependencies, subsequent tasks, that only in their totality can actually fully show you whether or not a task is complete, has proven to be the most efficient, especially as you guys scale. Now, the next one is Zapier. I like to name names, and I think that this one is a fantastic tool. The reason it's a fantastic tool is because you guys are going to be developing your own communication stream. You guys have a lot of different tools that you're going to be using. It's important that you create consolidation so that either you or your VA can have a top-down overview of everything that's going on at any given time. We like to use Zapier particularly because we're an email-oriented company, and we want to connect our email communication and activities directly to our team collaboration and management tools. Zapier has the ability, it's very beautiful, to elegantly make connections that combine both the task management, direct operational overview with your communication stream. Great. The next is Zoom, which we're using right now. Zoom is important because I'm a big fan of face-to-face discussion. It's also the most efficient way for our Philippine offshore employees to handle a wide volume of actual phone calls. The Philippine internet is not the greatest in the world, full disclosure. So any kind of platform like Zoom that is able to condense so much data in an efficient way without demanding too much of the internet power of your VAs is, of course, going to save you a lot of heartache. Zoom is the primary way that we as a team collaborate face-to-face for things like meetings and follow-ups. And finally, you need a spreadsheet tool. We are spreadsheet oriented. Zapier helps us a great deal with that. We're spreadsheet oriented, not just because Amazon is a dollars and cents kind of game. It's also because we love to write everything down. We are a note-taking oriented network. Your VA needs to be able to write everything down. Spreadsheets are a great way for you to actually have a top-down overview of everything that's going on in your business. It's a great way for you to manipulate the different things that are coming from all over the Amazon business world, operationally, sales-wise. And along with Zapier, it allows you to effectively congregate and manipulate data to actually give an overview for, that your VA can use. Now, we all know that communication is the most important foundation of collaboration, especially if you have an offshore employee. These are some of the tips that we can provide for you that helps us maintain a high degree of communication within our team, with our VAs, and also with our clients. The first is a centralized note system. You can use Google Docs and use Dropbox, but you must have an organized and efficient way of making sure all of your notes are there. Write everything down. We have a way of making sure all of our employees title their notes, but also before the actual notes, which are often in the narrative form, we also make them just straight up index all of the different kinds of searchable keywords that they might have. Oh, we were talking about client X and so forth. Even if client X is not explicitly mentioned in the note, they must actually begin the note with that client X communication so that if someone is searching for it on the drive, they're able to pull it up fairly quickly. You must make sure that every single meeting that you have with your VA is properly noted and logged and put into the shared folder. Write everything down. The second is change logs. This is where your spreadsheet system comes in. When we have a client, even if we have a really efficient task management tool, I want to make sure that we keep a track record of everything, every title change, every bullet point change, every image swap for EBC. We created a change log system so that our VAs note the time, date, action, reason, and person of responsibility for everything that is done on that Amazon account. And this is in addition to their task management system. The reason we do this is because there's always going to be instances where people change things out whimsically or intuitively. Why? Because there's always fires to fight. Most task management systems are unidirectional. Once a task is complete, it default assumes that people aren't really interested in seeing that anymore. And so they don't really function as a record for the kinds of changes that you might need to remember later on. Believe me, in addition to the centralized note system, the change logs is one of the most impactful ways that we can create a solid foundation of communication with our VAs. The next is SOPs and defined processes. Everything must be written down. Our SOPs are fairly straightforward. Oftentimes they are boilerplate text that has come from things like learning about the system, the software tools that we use. Very often the SOPs straight up include links to the instructional videos that the software tools provide. But we spent a long time making sure that everything has an SOP. There's an SOP for how to write subject lines of emails. There are SOPs for every single one of our software tools and instructions of how to do this. I find that in the interest of making things very clear with your VA, it's important that your SOPs try and work within an if this then that logic. The reason for that is that's often how the human mind actually tries to solve problems, but we find that it creates a high level of clarity and it creates a powerful third-party tool that our VAs can look at rather than kind of pester people to try and solve problems. Great. And as I said, I'm a big fan of dedicated face-to-face time. I'm a big believer in stand-up time. You should have at minimum 1 meeting per week for stand-up. The stand-up is a simple agenda. You're reviewing the tasks on the VA's plate using the software collaboration tool that you have. The meeting notes that you guys have in discussing those tasks should be conducted and should be filed accordingly based on the note system the centralized note system that you guys have. Specifically with our VAs, Philippine culture is definitely shy about adversarial one-on-one discussion. This is endemic to a lot of East Asian societies, right? It's about saving face. I think that having a meeting, though, one monthly meeting where you talk to your employees about their workload structure and well-being is very powerful. Rather than just have this kind of meeting where you suddenly take what almost seems like an adversarial position with one another, I have borrowed a cue from Amazon and believe in narratives. I think that your employee should write a letter, literally addressed to you, where they outline how they've been thinking and feeling about their job, how they've seen the development of their role and the tasks that you've assigned connect to their own personal success and also your company's success. I believe in the narrative form of writing because at the end of the day, even if their conclusions are right or wrong, it's important that you've been able to very clearly determine the veracity of their train of thought. Clear, well-cut, rational thinking is what creates a solid foundation for good communication and collaboration. And the next, and this is a bit quirky, I'm not really a fan of chat. And I think that the fewer channels that you have for communication with your VA, the better. We've unfortunately, at the early part of our development, it was all over the place. You had WeChat, WhatsApp, Slack, Asana. You just had so many channels of communication that at the end of the day, you're probably going to have a lot more heartbreak and headaches than this was supposed to solve. I find that this all kind of causes a lot more problems and confusions because I have a theory that different cultures have adapted to writing on chat in particular very differently. Filipinos have come from a very long SMS-based society. That chat-based communication techniques are not necessarily the same as sellers in Western nations, for instance, who may have already been used to kind of professional corporate real-time messaging software. An example I give is that when I'm on chat, I tend to write very long but fewer messages because I'm used to that kind of clear-cut specific instance. Very often at the very start of their VA careers with our company, Filipinos treat their chat kind of as if it was like an extension of their cell phone. I've seen literally kind of SMS-based shortcuts to writing words. It's clear that that there is a disjuncture here between how one professional and corporate culture handles chat and another. I think chat often is a little too messy and it's difficult to be on track of everything. I believe that the best way to communicate with your VA is still email. I think encouraging them and training them to write clear, expressive, and to the point emails is an artful and powerful way of establishing and growing the communications platform between yourself and your VA. Let's talk about compensation. I know that this is a big thing for a lot of people. Sourcing talent, in particular in the Philippines, is a little bit all over the place, and you want to make sure that you're paying appropriately for the degree of talent that you have. Compensation can be a little complicated here because of the existence of Philippine labor conditions. Very often, the best and brightest of the Philippine educational system are naturally attracted to secure, fixed employment opportunities. Very few of the best and brightest really want to take the freelancer route or the VA route without the security of that fixed employment. Some of those securities are enshrined in Philippine law, which has special worker protections, mandating the number of hours they can work, for instance, mandating the conditions of where they have their work conducted. It also includes compulsory benefits packages, which I will discuss here in a moment. The most basic form of effectively measuring a VA is obviously the hourly compensation structure. We have found that there can be some considerations here with the hourly structure. It honestly depends on the value that you think a VA can provide for your company and where your company is at. An hourly rate, prorated VA payment system is actually probably better for smaller to medium enterprises who don't have a lot of ASINs on Amazon. And the reason for that is because the actual operational efficiency that you're going to get from a VA on an hourly level probably matches the actual existing conditions of work that they might need. For the most part, we come across a lot of people who need the work day. And that's because you might have a lot of ASINs, or you might have a lot of brands which each have a few ASINs, or you might be a reseller of products that are belonging to other brands. But when you have these conditions in so many areas where you might actually be able to come into contact with serious problems, you need to be able to have some economies of scale, both financially, but also with your VA's capacity to solve these problems. The work month is also the primary way that we, for instance, handle larger accounts. If you are a CPG firm with a lot of SKUs and a lot of brands, if you are an aggregator, if you are also a highly successful seller who has several brands and a few ASINs, but sell a lot of those things fairly quickly, the work month is probably where you're going to see the best unit of value. I think that this is partly on Amazon, right? This is because Amazon often doesn't have a single point of contact to solve these problems, no matter what they might be. That kind of asymmetrical relationship between Amazon's own inefficiencies and your need to solve problems creates a diffusion in the relationship structure, and the efficiency of solving those problems has to be compensated accordingly. I'm going to explain this in simpler terms. It requires persistence. Follow through and persistence are more critical to solving problems on Amazon than cleverness and cogency. It's like following that ticket through to its logical conclusion. The answer you might get the first time you submit that ticket might not be the answer you want to hear or need to hear. Persistence matters, but you're paying by the hour here, right? Or the workday, not by the result. The economy of scale of solving problems needs to be considered. Cascades. Many sellers looking for hourly structures sometimes do lose the compounding knowledge that's endemic to solving a problem. Again, we can use the example of a problematic ASIN in the ticket. Amazon might never actually resolve the root problem of that ticket for many cycles. The only practical solution is someone who actually has experience of handling that ASIN itself. An ad hoc solution runs the risk of sellers losing knowledge, wisdom, and insight that can not only solve the problem now, but prevent the creation of more problems later on. And finally, we have, again, compounding knowledge. At the end of the day, you guys need to have people who not only understand how to solve those problems, but also grasp where your brand is at and how it fits within Amazon's framework. If you sell ASINs that are in a category that requires a lot of documentation, like a restricted category, an hourly rate might not necessarily provide you with the best value. Why? Because you might be facing quite a number of problems forever, quite frankly, that require the development of insight that will help not only prevent future problems, but create a foundation so that if future problems can and do occur, your VA knows already instinctively the reasons for that problem. Now, some tips for compensation. Number one, without a doubt, mobile wallet payment is preferred, okay? Most Philippine VAs are banked. Most Filipinos are unfortunately not banked. That's a problem that, of course, is going to be solved one day. But mobile wallet is the primary way that people prefer. Why? It's because banks, both the recipient and the sending banks, have a fee structure that is incurred by the financial transaction of that movement. And many Philippine VAs are very sensitive already to that margin that's going to be cut from that payment provider. Payment systems where the funds go directly into their mobile wallets are highly preferred for the simple fact that they're convenient and they're the cheapest for you and for them. We use Transfer Galaxy, TransferWise, and World Remit. I do want to make mention here that Transfer Galaxy and World Remit have the most robust systems for sending money to the Philippines. TransferWise does not always have the best time when it comes to Philippine mobile wallets like PayMongo or Gcash. The second is the bonus and 13th month pay. The 13th month pay is a legal protection enshrined in Philippine law. It does not explicitly extend to offshore freelancers, but the fact is that most full-time employed Filipinos have this as part of their overall compensation structure, and your VAs are competing with those benefit packages. We pay a 13th month pay. The 13th month pay is always paid out at the end of the calendar year. It's enshrined mostly so that Filipinos can have money to buy gifts for Christmas. It is prorated, however, according to how long the employee has actually been working. So in December, if your employee has only been working for 2 months, it does not necessarily mean they just get an extra or double version of what they would get in December. It means they have a specific calculation, which the Philippine government is more than willing to actually post on the internet to share with you, for how you're actually going to calculate that bonus structure. The perks and legal compliance are also very important for considering compensating your talented VA. Okay, Philippine VAs love perks. These can include things like access to desk sharing offices like WeWork, pre and post pandemic, hopefully. Company swag is also appreciated for sure. You can also give gift cards to local Philippine businesses. We like to give gift cards out to Lazada, which is the Southeast Asian response to Amazon. But to be fully transparent, the biggest perk, the one that's most beloved by our employees, is that we provide filing and tax payment that are incurred by VAs. Freelancers are legally required in Philippine law to provide you with their tax identification number, and they're supposed to file their tax returns every year by declaring the money that you've paid for them. The offshore earnings for taxation purposes is a legal requirement, and we found that the biggest perk that we provide to our VAs is that we file those taxes, and if they owe tax, which most often they do not, we will pay for that too. And like so many of you, I myself had to learn these skills, and I had to build my own team. I have built out Phoenix VA, which is my own offshore entity team that works with Amazon sellers and other e-commerce businesses using things like Shopify, WooCommerce, etc. If you're interested in our services and just want to have a talk, or to be honest, if you want more advice on how you can be successful with your VA team, reach out to us at phoenixva.co or email us, preferred, at hello@phoenixva.co.
Wow, what a huge value you're giving to Orange Click viewers. I mean, you gave so many names of tools and like structure step by step what let's say a beginner Amazon business could implement from the start of their journey. And I do know some of the things you mentioned, like that Filipinos really like full-time employment. I have experienced myself, like 2 or 3 years ago, I worked with Filipino, but I could give him just half time to cover just half time for my tasks. And after 3 or 4 months, he was really good. But after 3 or 4 months, he found excuses why he cannot do things. Like he had to help his mother in the market. And I understood that he's like really has trouble with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We come into constant, we meet a lot of clients who've had this experience, and the solution that we provide has been that we do the vetting. You don't have to hear the sad stories. What we're primarily interested in is helping you grow your business and having a fun time while doing it.
And can you explain about a VPN? Why do you need it? Because I understood that you could just create an Amazon seller central account for your VA and they can log in from Philippines. Is there any threat or security issue?
There's no real threat or security issue that people should be perniciously afraid of. We just have found that at the end of the day, like an Amazon leadership principle, it's about simplicity. Having a VPN sometimes just didn't work for us. We've had issues where we would have a VPN that was in the right market for the right marketplace, and Amazon would still detect that it was from an offshore entity, which creates a whole bunch of warnings, which might not necessarily be happy for your clients, might not necessarily be another email you want in your inbox. We found that having a remote desktop viewing tool was able for us to consolidate all of the information into a single secure resource, passwords and so forth, so that our team could at any point access the materials that they needed without having to go through too many steps to actually access these materials.
And what I also liked that you said, you gave some examples how you can reward your VAs, and I didn't even think of giving a check for the shopping mall or shop. Yeah, it's really interesting. I like it. And also that you pay taxes for them, right?
Absolutely. That's a major aspect to it. I have Philippine citizenship as well, and I have to make sure that I report to the requisite Philippine authorities. Getting a Philippine tax identification number is unfortunately not a really easy thing. But we have seen other companies who offer services like ours run into problems when the authorities realize that, hey, none of your employees are actually registered to pay tax, let alone pay tax. And we find that having that to showcase that we are reliable employers for our reliable employees is to take that extra step and say, we will actually file those taxes for you to make sure that you're fully compliant with the right authorities, both national and city. And if you need, we will also pay those taxes. Now, I think I can count on one hand how many actual VAs we've ever had to pay taxes for. But I do think that this is a really important consideration, because you do not want to hear a sad story. You don't want the excuse that, hey, I can't do this anymore with you because I forgot to file my taxes and now I'm in trouble with the authorities. You don't want to hear that, especially if you've developed and trained this VA in a very powerful way.
And final question, you mentioned a few times that face-to-face communication is very important. Can you tell us how do you organize it? Do you meet every VA once a week, or what's your suggestion?
I personally meet a VA once a week. I do that. However, if you have a team of VAs, at a certain point, you may want to actually just have a collaborative single meeting where you go over all of their different work schedules at once. At a certain point, and it's typically around 4 or 5 VAs, you may want to actually consider another VA whose job is just to do those things, especially if you have a very scalable business, typically a lot of ASINs and a lot of brands.
All right. Thanks a lot. So everyone who is watching, if you want to get help with professionally selected VAs from Philippines, make sure that you contact Edward and phoenixva.co. And also below in the description of this video, you will find a special offer for Orange Klik viewers from Edward. So enjoy VAs, and thank you, Edward, for this huge value you gave to us, and good luck in your business.
Thank you, Augustus.
I hope you enjoyed and found it useful what Edward shared in his presentation. I think it's amazing. I hope you made some notes for really how to deal and how to find and work with VAs. And if you want to check what he does and check his company, you will find the link below, as well as the offer in case you will decide to sign up for his services. And now I would like to invite you to watch other video where our video co-host Lisette Lees, she will explain 3 steps how to hire VAs from store manager perspective.